Meghan is protecting herself, not from the press, not from the palace, from her own husband. Yes, you heard that right. The word coming out of their own camp isn't protection for Harry, it's protection from him. And while she builds her wall, Harry is living the one nightmare he swore he'd never face, the exact life he ran from. He's trapped in it now. And the woman who promised to stand beside him through all of it, she's quietly stepping back. This isn't a bad week for Harry. This is the week it all came into focus. So stay with me, because what starts as one expert's quote unravels into something a whole lot bigger by the time we're done. And the worst part, honestly, the part that's going to make your jaw drop, is nowhere near the beginning of this story. Let's start with the words themselves, because they came from someone who watches this couple for a living. A royal commentator broke it down in the bluntest terms imaginable. Meghan is keeping very busy building her brand, while Harry is busy coping with his worst nightmare, living life as a pseudo-celebrity royal. Which brings with it, and I want you to really sit with this phrase for a second, all the things he hated growing up. Read that again. All the things he hated growing up. The cameras going off in his face, the red carpets he never wanted to walk, the feeling of being watched, packaged, sold like a perfume. That is the life Prince Harry ran 10,000 miles to escape. That is the machine he said was destroying him, the one he blamed for his mother, the one he wrote an entire book about getting away from. And here he is in 2026, standing on red carpets in Los Angeles, posing for the very cameras he once claimed had ruined his life. He didn't escape it. He just changed the postcode. And the expert didn't stop there. He said Harry is stuck in the world of red carpets and camera flashes, which as a child never sat easy with him. But here is the twist that turns this from sad into genuinely revealing. For Meghan, those exact same red carpets and cameras are part of her brand building. They are the fuel. They are the whole point. So she needs to protect herself from Harry's chaos in order to achieve what she wants. Now think about what that sentence is actually telling you. These two people are standing in the same room, at the same events, in front of the same cameras, and one of them is drowning while the other one is swimming laps. Same water, completely different outcome. And the swimmer has decided that the drowning man is a liability she can't afford to be dragged down by. That is not a marriage operating as a team anymore. That is one person managing the other like a risk on a balance sheet. But here's what nobody was paying attention to while that headline was making the rounds. Because if you only read that one quote, you'd think this was just gossip, just an expert spinning a theory for clicks. It isn't. Look around it, and you'll find the evidence stacking up on every single side. So let's go through it, piece by piece. And I promise you, by the end, you will see exactly why that word, protection, is the most honest thing anyone has said about this couple in years. Start with the staff, because nothing tells you what's happening inside a household like the people who keep walking out of it. And they are walking out, not in a trickle, in a flood. Since Harry and Meghan gave up their royal duties back in 2020, reports put the number of employees who have quit on them at 23. 23. Let that land for a second. 23 people looked at working for this couple and looked at the door and chose the door. And the most recent exits weren't junior assistants nobody had heard of. We're talking about the couple's chief U.S. publicist, who reportedly left after just 10 months on the job. 10 months. You don't take a high-profile job like that and walk away in 10 months unless something is very wrong. And almost at the same time, the couple's longest-serving aide, the executive director of their entire Archwell Foundation, stepped down after nearly 5 years. Two of the most senior people in the entire operation. Gone. Almost simultaneously. And here's the line from inside that tells you everything. Sources say the double exit rattled Meghan. One report described her as terrified. Another said she'd gone into what they called full meltdown mode. And who was she reportedly blaming for the chaos that drove these people out the door? Have a guess. It wasn't herself. And let's actually do the maths on this, because the number deserves a second look. 23 departures in roughly 5 years. That's more than 4 people a year, every year, deciding that whatever the salary was, whatever the prestige of working for a real-life Duke and Duchess was supposed to be, It wasn't worth staying. Think about the kind of workplace that produces a number like that. Think about the kind of household. Because most organizations, if they bled staff at that rate, would be hauled in front of a tribunal somewhere, asking very pointed questions. And these aren't faceless temps either. Some of them were people who'd worked on prestige television, who'd built serious careers, who left those careers to join the Sussex Project because they actually believed in it. And one by one, they looked at the reality of it up close, and they walked. There's an old rule in business. If one person quits, it's about them. If everyone quits, it's about you. And 23 people quitting isn't a coincidence. It's a verdict. So you start to see why an expert would reach for the word protection. When your own staff are fleeing for the exits and your inner circle is collapsing around you, you don't reach out and pull your partner closer. You build a wall. You protect what's yours. And increasingly, what's hers looks very separate from what's his. Now, I want to be fair here, genuinely fair, because that matters. Staff leave jobs all the time. People move on. 1 or 2 departures, sure, you'd shrug it off. But 23 in 5 years? With the 2 most senior figures going out the door together? That isn't bad luck. That's a pattern. And patterns don't lie the way single events can. And here's where it tips from a staffing problem into something darker. Because there's another report, and this one, Harry reportedly does not want anywhere near the public, that explains exactly why these people keep leaving. The whisper that has followed Meghan for years, the one about how staff are allegedly treated behind closed doors, the demanding behavior, the revolving door. And according to insiders, Harry is said to be exasperated by it, not because of the staff, because of what it does to them, to the brand, to the image. One source put it in terms that genuinely made me pause. They said Harry's biggest fear, his actual nightmare, is that the stories about staff treatment could drag the couple into what they called Me Too territory. That Meghan could end up branded the way certain Hollywood figures have been branded, accused of being a difficult, even abusive boss. And the source said Harry knows that once that label sticks, it is nearly impossible to shake. So picture the man for a second. He left his family. He burned the bridges. He bet everything on this new life, on this partnership, on this brand they were going to build together. And now he's lying awake at night, according to these reports, terrified that the whole thing could implode not because of the press he hates, but because of something happening inside his own house. That is the nightmare. The cameras aren't the nightmare. The cameras he can survive. It's the fear that the person he chose over everything might be the very thing that brings the whole house down on his head. And while he's reportedly losing sleep over that, what's she doing? Building, launching, posting, protecting herself from his chaos so she can keep achieving what she wants. The contrast almost writes itself. But hold that thought, because the staff exodus is only the first crack in the wall. The next one is about money. And money, as we've learned watching this couple, is where the real story always hides. Because here's something that surfaced in the same wave of reporting, and it lands like a gut punch. Meghan Markle's popularity in the United States is reportedly crashing, and not in a vacuum either. It's crashing in line with a slump in her business, her American home, her chosen home, the place she fled to, the audience she built her entire post-royal identity around, is cooling on her. The brand and the woman are sinking together, hand in hand, and the numbers are starting to show it in black and white. Now, why does that matter to the protection story? Because it explains the urgency. When the money was flowing, when the deals were stacking up, when the Netflix machine was still humming, Meghan could afford to ride out a little chaos. There was a cushion. But when the popularity dips and the business slumps at the same time, suddenly every misstep costs you. Every association with chaos is a liability you can measure in dollars. And Harry, bless him, has become a walking source of chaos. The security battles, the court losses, the constant churn of negative headlines following him around like a storm cloud he can't outrun. So if you're Meghan and your brand is your future, and your husband is generating bad press faster than you can generate good press, what do? You do exactly what the experts said. You protect yourself. You build the separation. You keep your launches and your appearances and your image carefully, deliberately, a little bit apart from his. Not divorced, just insulated. Like building a fire break between your house and the woods when you can smell smoke on the wind. And here's the genuinely uncomfortable part of the popularity crash, the bit nobody at her table wants to say out loud. America was supposed to be the safe harbor. Britain could turn its back, fine. The tabloids could sharpen their knives, fine. The plan was always that the United States would embrace her. That was the whole bet. The Oprah interview, the Netflix deals, the podcast, the lifestyle brand, all of it was built on the assumption that 50 states full of people would adore her the way Britain refused to. And now the reporting suggests that adoration is cooling. The popularity is sliding right alongside the business. The safe harbor is starting to look a lot less safe than it used to. When that happens, when your last loyal audience starts drifting, you don't have the luxury of carrying dead weight. Every appearance has to count. Every photo has to land. And a husband trailing security lawsuits, court defeats, and a permanent cloud of family drama? In pure brand terms, as cold as that sounds, that's a subtraction. That's a cost. And a woman watching her numbers slide is a woman who starts counting costs very, very carefully. And speaking of fire, you'll remember the matches, the candles with no wicks, the whole bizarre, doomed launch we've watched unfold. The brand stumbling from bookmarks to matches to jam, never quite finding its feet. That's the business that's slumping. That's the empire she's now reportedly protecting at the cost of standing fully beside her husband. A candle company that can't decide what it is, propped up against a marriage that's pulling in two directions. And she's chosen the candle company. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because the priorities tell the truth that the anniversary photos try to hide. Now, let's talk about those two directions, because this is where it all really lives. Experts watching this couple have started using a phrase, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. They say Harry and Meghan are on divergent paths. Divergent, moving apart. And it's not about love, supposedly. The personal bond, they insist, is still intact. It's about direction, about what each of them actually wants out of the life they have left. Meghan wants California. She wants the brand, the celebrity, the A-list dinner parties, the lifestyle empire with her name stamped on every jar. She has, by most accounts, thrived in that world. She fits it. She wanted it. She's chasing it with everything she has. And Harry? Harry wants Britain. He can't help it. He's pulled toward it, and he always will be. One royal author put it in a way that genuinely stung. He said Harry's decision to leave is now looking a lot less clever than it once did. And he described Harry as looking lost in Montecito. Lost. In the multi-million-dollar mansion, with the pool and the gates and the California sunshine, the man looks lost. Because the thing he actually wants isn't there. It was never there. It's 4,000 miles away, behind palace walls that have been quietly bolted shut behind him. And here's the cruelty hidden inside that word, lost. Because Harry was raised to be exactly three things: a prince, a soldier, a polo player. That's it. That's the entire toolkit he was handed at birth. And not one of those things is worth anything in Montecito, California. You can't be a prince in a place with no monarchy. You can't be a soldier when your service is 2 decades behind you. And polo, lovely as it is, doesn't pay the mortgage on a mansion that size. So a man who only knows how to be those three things wakes up every morning in a country that has no use for any of them. Of course he looks lost. He was built for a world he chose to leave, and now he's stranded in one he doesn't know how to operate in. Meghan, meanwhile, was built for exactly this world. The cameras, the brand, the celebrity. She's home. He's in exile. Same house. One of them belongs there, and one of them doesn't. Harry himself, standing in Ukraine of all places, told reporters he would always be part of the royal family, that he was doing the very thing he was born to do. Read that, and then look at where he's living, at the brand launches he's standing next to, at the cookbook parties in Los Angeles, and tell me that's a man at peace. That's a man clinging to an identity that the world keeps gently informing him is no longer his. And that cookbook party is worth stopping on because it's such a small, sad little snapshot of the whole thing. Harry turning up solo, alone, to a celebration for a friend's cookbook in Los Angeles. No Meghan beside him, just the Duke of Sussex, fifth son of the British monarchy. A man who once stood in Westminster Abbey in his military finest, making a surprise solo appearance at a book launch in California. There's nothing wrong with supporting a friend, obviously, but step back and look at the arc. From Trooping the Color to a cookbook party. From the balcony at Buckingham Palace to a guest spot on someone else's red carpet. And alone. Where was she? Building, protecting, doing her own thing. The image of the two of them as an inseparable team, the version they sold us in the early days, keeps quietly being replaced by photos of one of them showing up somewhere on their own. And it's almost always him, solo, a little lost, smiling for a camera at an event that has nothing to do with the life he actually wants. That's not a partnership operating at full strength. That's a man filling time in a country that isn't his, while his wife runs the business that is hers. So you've got one person sprinting toward a future and another person staring backward at a past. When one person is desperate to move forward and the other refuses to glance away from what's behind them, that's not a couple sharing a road anymore. That's two people who happen to be walking in opposite directions, holding hands for the cameras, hoping nobody notices the strain in their arms. And the protection story slots right into that gap. Because if Meghan's path is forward and Harry's chaos keeps trying to drag her backward, of course she protects herself. Of course she builds the wall. Her future depends on not being pulled into his past. But here's where it gets sharper, and this is the detail that I think reveals the most. The wedding. Or rather, the wedding they weren't invited to. Because just as all of this was swirling, the news broke that Harry and Meghan were not invited to Peter Phillips' wedding. Peter Phillips, the late Queen's eldest grandchild, Harry's own first cousin. A family wedding, a genuine royal family occasion, and the Sussexes didn't make the list. And the reporting framed it exactly as what it is, the family rift deepening, not healing. Deepening. Now think about what that does to each of them. For Harry, it's a knife straight to the wound. This is a man who, by every account, aches to be back inside that family, who wants his children to know their cousins, their grandfather, their heritage. And here's a family wedding happening without him, the door politely but firmly closed. Another reminder that the people he wants don't want him back. For Meghan, honestly, it might be a relief. Why would she want to walk into a room full of people who, by all accounts, can't stand her? Why would she expose her carefully managed brand to the cold shoulders and the awkward photographs and the body language the whole world would dissect for weeks afterwards? A snub for Harry is heartbreak. A snub for Meghan is one less landmine to navigate. Same event, opposite meaning. They're divergent paths written into a wedding invitation that never arrived. And that's the protection again, isn't it? She doesn't need that family. He can't let it go. His need is her risk. Let me bring in one more thread because it shows you how this works in real time. There was a recent moment, and you've probably seen versions of it, where comparisons started flying between Meghan and Princess Diana. Meghan, or the reporting around her, leaning into echoes of Harry's late mother, the humanitarian image, the wronged by the establishment narrative, the lone figure standing up to a cold institution. And the reaction was sharp. Prince William, reportedly, was deeply upset by it. The Diana comparison sparked what was described as a bitter new feud, because to William, his mother isn't a brand reference. She isn't a marketing strategy. She's the woman he lost. And to see her memory, as he might see it, borrowed and repurposed, that's the kind of thing that hardens a man's heart permanently. Now, why does that matter to Harry's nightmare? Because every time Meghan's brand reaches for that comparison, it deepens the very rift that Harry is desperate to close. Her path forward, her image building, actively damages his path backward. They're not just walking in different directions. One of them's steps are knocking down the bridge the other one is trying to cross. And he can't say anything, because to choose the family over the wife is the one move he's spent 6 years refusing to make. And there's a wider game playing out behind all of this that makes the timing even more brutal, because there are voices, certain commentators, certain well-placed friends working hard right now to sell a story that a thaw is coming, that Harry is quietly being welcomed back, that father and son are mending fences behind the scenes, that a summer reunion might be possible, that the door is creaking open just a crack. King Charles, by every account, is the romantic of the family. His dearest wish, the one Harry himself revealed in his own book, was to not have his final years made a misery, to be reconciled with his son before the time runs out. And with the king's health fragile, that clock is ticking louder than ever. So picture Harry caught in the middle of that. On one side, a father who just might be willing to crack the door open, a genuine, aching, time-limited chance to go home. And on the other side, a wife whose entire brand strategy, whether she means it to or not, keeps slamming that same door shut. Every Diana comparison, every snub absorbed, every step further into the California celebrity machine pulls him further from the reconciliation he wants most. He is being pulled apart, quite literally, by the two things he can't have at the same time: the family and the marriage. And he has to choose. And so far, he keeps choosing her, at the cost of everything else. So when the expert says Meghan protects herself from Harry's chaos, flip it around for a second, because there's a version of this where Harry might need protecting too. From the brand that uses his family's tragedy as a marketing hook. From the chaos that, depending on which way you look, might be flowing in both directions. But that's not the story being told. The story being told is the one where she's the strategist and he's the liability. And the reason that story sticks is because the evidence keeps backing it up. Now, I want to pause here because if you're following along and the pattern is making your head spin a little, you're not alone. And if you want this channel to keep pulling these threads together, the ones the polite outlets won't touch, do me one small favor. Tap subscribe. It's free, it takes a second, and it's the one thing that keeps us digging while everyone else just reprints the press release. Right, back to it. Because we still haven't reached the part that ties the whole thing in a bow. Let's talk about the home. Because home is where this entire saga has always lived, hasn't it? And right now, the last physical trace of Harry's life in Britain is being scrubbed away. Frogmore Cottage, the house the late Queen gave them. The house they poured millions into renovating, the yoga studio, the rewired everything, the copper bath, all of it. That house is reportedly being torn back apart, the renovations reversed, every customization undone. The Crown Estate, by these accounts, spending money specifically to erase the fact that Harry and Meghan were ever there. And sources close to the couple say they're furious about it. Furious. Now, here's the tell. Who's furious? Both of them, supposedly. But think about what that house means to each. To Harry, Frogmore was home, his foothold, his proof that a piece of Britain was still his, still waiting. Erasing it is erasing him. To Meghan, Frogmore is a chapter she closed years ago, a place she was reportedly never particularly happy in, a relic of the life she was desperate to leave. Her fury, if it's there, is about principle and image. His fury is about loss, real, personal, aching loss. Same house, same bulldozer, two completely different wounds. And once again, you see it. He's losing something. She's managing something. Their divergent paths carved right into the brickwork of a cottage near Windsor. And here's the cruelest detail of all. That house has sat empty for 3 years. They offered it, reportedly, to Prince Andrew during his own eviction talks. And even Andrew, even him, looked at Frogmore and said no, said it wasn't good enough. So the one piece of Britain Harry has been clinging to, the symbol of the door staying open, turns out to be a place that nobody in the family wants, that's being actively demolished, that even the most disgraced royal in living memory turned his nose up at. That's the foothold. That's what's left. Rubble and reversed renovations, and a family that won't even let the memory stand. If you're Harry, where does that leave you? You've got a family that won't invite you to weddings, a house being erased, a brother who reportedly can't stand the sight of you, a father whose health is fragile and whose time is short, and a wife who, according to the people watching closest, is busy building a separate future and protecting herself from your chaos. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the nightmare. Not one thing, all of it, at once, closing in from every direction at the same time. And the brother thing deserves its own moment, because it's the wall this whole fantasy of return keeps smashing into. Because while Charles the Romantic might dream of reconciliation, by every credible account, it isn't Charles steering the future of the monarchy anymore. It's William. The king's health has shifted the gravity of the whole institution toward the next generation, toward the Prince of Wales, and William is described, in the bluntest possible terms, as categorical. He doesn't merely disapprove of his brother. He reportedly blames Harry for heaping stress on his family during the most painful chapter of their lives, for the book, for the interviews, for dragging private grief onto a global stage and selling tickets to it. And a man who feels that way about his brother does not forgive easily, and he does not forget at all. So even if Charles cracks the door, William is standing right behind it, ready to close it again. And that's the trap. Harry's best hope for a way home is a father who's running out of time, against a brother who holds the real power and has already made up his mind. The romantic versus the realist. And the realist wins, because the realist is the future. That's the wall. And Harry, lost in Montecito, keeps walking straight into it. And the bitter irony, the thing that makes this almost a Greek tragedy, is that he chose it. Every piece of it. He chose to leave. He chose California. He chose the brand-building, camera-flashing, red carpet life. He chose her. There was a concept the ancient Greeks had, the chastisement of hubris, the punishment of arrogance, the idea that the gods take particular interest in the proud, in the ones who think they've outsmarted fate, and arrange for their fall to be especially poetic. And there is something almost unbearably poetic about a man who fled the cameras to escape his nightmare, only to wake up inside it, on a red carpet in Los Angeles, standing next to a wife who's quietly checking the exits. Now, let's be careful and fair, because that matters and I won't pretend otherwise. A lot of this reporting comes from unnamed sources, insiders, people close to the couple. And we should always hold that kind of thing at arm's length, because anonymous sources have agendas, and royal reporting is a business built on speculation dressed up as fact. The couple themselves present a united front. The anniversary photos, 8 years now, show two people who, on the surface, look perfectly fine. The children prepared sentimental gifts. The pictures are warm. The official line is that the personal bond is intact, and only the professional paths have split. But here's the thing about a united front. You only need one when something underneath needs defending. Genuinely happy people don't have to keep announcing how intact their bond is. And when the staff are fleeing, the brand is slumping, the popularity is crashing, the family is closing doors, the house is being demolished, and the experts are reaching for words like divergent and protection and nightmare. You have to ask yourself which version is real. The carefully posed anniversary photo, or everything happening in the spaces around it. And the audience, the people watching this couple from the cheap seats, they've already made up their minds, and they're not being gentle about it. Scroll through any comment section under any story about these two, and you'll see the same things over and over. People pointing out that the timing is always too perfect, that every warm William moment is followed within hours by a Meghan post chasing the same wave, that the sold-out launches never quite add up, that a couple who fled the spotlight screaming somehow can't go a single week without finding a camera to stand in front of. The public stopped buying the official story a long time ago, and once an audience starts watching you through that lens, every move you make just confirms what they already believe. Because for years now, this couple has run a particular play. The sold-out launches that may never have been that sold out. The powerful speeches in half-empty rooms. The image of triumph carefully constructed to paper over a reality that keeps leaking through the cracks. And the protection story is just the latest crack. The latest leak. The latest moment where the gap between the picture and the truth gets a little too wide to ignore. So where does it actually leave them? Let's pull every thread together, because this is where it all lands. Think of it as a list, the kind one sharp-eyed viewer might lay out in a comment to prove a point. The staff, 23 gone. The two most senior out the door at once. A household bleeding people who won't say publicly why they ran. The money. A brand slumping, a popularity crashing, the safe American harbor turning cold. The family. A wedding invitation that never came, a brother who's categorical, a father running out of time, a reconciliation dangled and then snatched away. The home. Frogmore being bulldozed, the renovations reversed, the last brick of Harry's Britain turned to rubble that even Prince Andrew wouldn't touch. And the marriage. Divergent paths, a wife protecting herself, a husband showing up alone. Lay all of that on the table and ask the question the viewer always asks. What do these things have in common? And the answer comes back in a single word. Direction. Everything is moving the same way. Apart. You have Meghan on her path, forward, toward California, toward the brand, toward an A-list celebrity future, protecting herself from anything, including her own husband, that threatens to slow her down. Her popularity may be dipping, and her business may be slumping, but her direction is crystal clear. She knows what she wants, and she's reaching for it with both hands. And you have Harry, on his path, backward, toward Britain, toward the family, toward an identity the world keeps telling him he's no longer allowed to have, lost in Montecito, aching for a home that's being bulldozed, excluded from the weddings, estranged from the brother, standing on the cameras he hates, living the nightmare he ran from, watching the one person he chose over everything quietly build a life that has a little less room in it for him every day. The personal bond may well be intact. I'm not here to declare a marriage over from a handful of headlines, and I won't. But intact and aligned are two very different things. You can love someone and still be walking in the opposite direction. You can share a bed and still be building separate futures. And when the experts who watch this couple for a living all start reaching for the same vocabulary, divergent, protection, nightmare, lost, you stop being able to dismiss it as one bad week or one cynical quote. 5 years on from the freedom flight, from those 2 smug little words Harry posted as he fled, free at last, the message coming back from every direction couldn't be clearer. The family isn't pretending he left and might return. The brand isn't waiting for him to feel comfortable. The house isn't standing empty for his someday return. And the wife, according to the people closest to it, isn't standing fully shoulder to shoulder anymore. She's standing a careful, strategic step to the side, protecting herself from his chaos to get what she wants. He wanted freedom. He got it. And it turns out freedom, the way Harry chased it, looks an awful lot like being alone on a red carpet, 4,000 miles from home, in the middle of the exact nightmare you spent your whole life trying to escape, while the person beside you smiles for the camera and plans her exit from the frame. And maybe that's the saddest part of the whole thing. He didn't lose it all in one dramatic moment. There was no single courtroom verdict, no one slam door, no public divorce announcement. It happened the way these things really happen, slowly, quietly, one member of staff at a time, one wedding invitation that never arrived, one brick of Frogmore pulled down at a time, one brand launch he wasn't part of, one solo appearance after another. 1,000 tiny steps in opposite directions, each one too small to notice on its own, until you look up one day and the distance between two people has become a canyon nobody can remember digging. That's how it goes. Not with a bang. With a slow, careful, strategic drift. One person protecting themselves, the other person not even realizing until it's far too late that he was the thing being protected against. That's not the story the anniversary photos want you to see, but it might just be the truest one anybody's told. If you want to understand just how deep this divide really runs, the videos on your screen right now break every single piece of it wide open. The Frogmore demolition, the brand collapse, the family rift, the security battles. They tell you everything this one couldn't. Go on, watch them now.